lord of all he surveys, Africa's king of the beasts. A study in strength, a supercharged hunting beast, the most symbolic ever, commanding beauty and steely-eyed power. Nothing else quite says Africa like a lion. The lion has long been called king of the beasts, but there was a time when other animals disputed his right to rule. The antelope claimed they should, as they were swift as the wind. The elephant trumpeted his challenge, saying, "I am wisest and stronger than you. I can crush you underfoot." The baboon too demanded to be king. His agility and cunning gave him the right, he said. And yet another, the eagle, staked his claim because he had the power of flight. But the lion just prowled his kingdom, looking regal, ignoring their rebellious demand. And the antelope fled before him. The elephant became nervous and retreated. The baboon shot up the nearest tree. And the eagle soared far out of reach. None could challenge the lion's supremacy. He knew it was just words. Not one had the courage to be king. Lions are big cats. The record holder died in South Africa in 1936, a man-eater as heavy as 5 adult humans. Only the tiger is a bigger cat. An average male is an impressive monarch, standing 1¼ meters at the shoulder, his weight perhaps that of 3 grown people. Lions see very well, and 6 times better than us at night. They look out from large golden eyes with binocular vision, good at calculating distance and separating prey from background. A lion's whiskers are very sensitive antennae, and the pattern of spots where they sprout is as unique to each cat as a human fingerprint. A lion is a study in controlled power. Everything about it says strength. From fangs cleaned with the toothbrush of the hide and bone it gnaws, to short jaws capable of a crushing bite. Africa's top carnivore has immensely powerful neck and jaws. Its real strength lies there and in its forequarters, enabling it to drag dead weights much heavier than itself. Lions tuck their claws away in special pockets when they're not using them. These spring-loaded switchblades need to be sheathed to save wear and tear, especially when padding round their kingdom. Young cubs are spotty creatures. Spots fade gradually, but sometimes just a ghost of them remains. Their coloration helps hide them when they're young and small and vulnerable. Just very rarely, a white lion is born. It's not an albino, but a lion with a faulty gene, so it lacks the usual color in its hair shafts. It may have had white or tawny parents. This ethereal-looking animal has yellow eyes and a black nose, not albino pink. The great hallmark of a male is his mane. Testosterone controls the growth of this magnificent ruff, which advertises his status and protects his neck. But it's a nuisance in bushy country. Stress can make a lion lose handfuls of mane, but this one's having a bad hair day for a different reason. It's not a he, it's a she, a female overdosed with testosterone. An odd girl out, very close to being an it, and not known to have mated. All lions, including India's few, belong to exactly the same species. There are no subspecies to this part of the cat family. A pride of lions is so familiar, it's easy to forget it's something very special, because lions are the only cats that live in a group, and it's the key to their success. The pride is almost entirely a sisterhood of closely or distantly related females. The females are usually in a pride for life, but not males. They're evicted at about 3 years, and can have a very tough time of it after that. The only full-grown males tolerated around the pride are the temporary reigning monarchs. They're in a closely bonded coalition, usually of 2 or 3. Any fewer than that, and they couldn't take over a pride to get access to the females and mate. The males are kept on their toes when the females are on heat. Mating is their reward for providing an armed guard to protect females and cubs against other coalitions, who will kill cubs if they take over. Once a male has laid claim to a female, his allies usually keep a respectful distance, but not always. Sometimes a male coalition has territories which encompass those of several prides. This big male has one overlapping the border of Botswana and Namibia. He strides round it confidently, watching for rivals who might slip in and try to mate with the females under his protection. He checks the air for those telltale female scents, the ones that say they're on heat. Beefy muscles and a splendid mane are his status symbols, but he's like a weightlifter who sacrificed speed for strength. He's slower off the mark than the sleek females he seeks to impress. Not that that troubles them. Mane and muscles indicate he's a survivor despite his handicaps. Good breeding blood flows in those kingly veins, and when she chooses, the lioness shows willing to mingle it with hers. And the male dutifully picks up his cue. A ruling male is likely to have a short reign, usually just 2 years. So he must make the most of it and mate often, whenever the chance arises. about 6 days, he sticks to her like glue, and throughout the day, every 20 minutes or so between rests, they mate. The need to do so is a real slave driver. Even at nightfall, there's no let-up. His sperm count probably drops to 0, not that he'd know. He won't quit until she's out of estrus and stops soliciting. There's no other way to try and make sure her cubs are his. A female is pregnant 3.5 months, longer than any other cat. As the safety of her newborn is paramount, she gives birth in hiding. She moves her cubs from den to den for their first 6 weeks, and only leaves to hunt and eat. While she's away, there's no one to watch over them. Her bundles of fluff are now old enough to join the pride, where there's not just Mum to keep an eye on them. In a close unit like the pride, lionesses look after each other's cubs, attention seekers that need discipline. Even non-related females will put up with typical cheeky kittenish behavior, if it doesn't go too far. So close is the pride bond that females with cubs the same age happily pool their resources. They play and groom and suckle across the board. It's a real working commune, with plenty of childminders. One of the first things a new male coalition does when it takes over is kill young cubs. This is not cruelty nor viciousness, but a simple, overwhelming need to breed. With no young to rear, the females will mate again. Both have the same drive to pass on their genes. So a pride may have several litters the same age, all with perhaps one shared parent. And their bond leads the females to share cub care, even down to suckling. When it's about 3 months old, a cub starts having a crack at stalking. This is a basic lesson in catching food and earning its keep. First experiments are always conducted on a relative. An experimental throat tackle, something it'll eventually do on prey. Hunting is learned, and genetically hardwired and instinctive. It's never too soon to find out why bark grows on trees, to keep a lion's claws sharp. But at this age, on a milk diet, toothpicks are unnecessary. Older cubs are above such child's play. They're into learning how to knock down prey, only not the real thing just yet. The older they get, the rougher they play. Claws are sheathed, but a playful swipe has substantial muscle behind it. It's a little early, though, to try out some lessons. Growing up in this society is all about learning how to survive, and that revolves around food. Lions can rarely eat in peace. The smell of death quickly attracts scavengers. A large kill provides plenty of scraps, which a black-backed jackal snatches, if it dares. But stealing is dangerous, like playing Russian roulette. Scrounging off a big cat may be nerve-wracking, but it can be the way to survive, and jackals are very good at that. But the chief scavenger and lion competitor is this animal, the hyena. Though his stomach looks bursting, this big male is not going to give up his kill. A large enough hyena pack can drive lions from their kill, but in this case, the male has backup. Hyenas and the rest must just sit it out. In a single sitting, a hungry lion can devour about 50 kilos, like eating an adolescent human. Even weighed down like that, he still has energy to drag his kill. Just half a dead buffalo must easily weigh as much as he does. Just try stealing it now. A group of lions can naturally defend a kill better than one, and that's another big advantage of their unique social lifestyle. Lion and hyena are rivals with a deadly relationship, but this time the hyenas know they're beaten. The lush green heart of the Kalahari is the Okavango, a place of many herbivores. And their predators. Buffalo are extremely dangerous for a lion to attack, but in water they can be sitting ducks. Lions kill by suffocating. It can be a slow way to go. Here comes the rest of the family. Keen to help, but youth and inexperience make them more of a hindrance. the lions won't eat the buffalo calf here, they'll drag it clear. The pride gathers round. The cubs are still hesitant and awkward, but they'll quickly learn what to do by copying their elders. A buffalo is normally too big and dangerous for a lioness to tackle alone, but a calf separated from its mother was easy game. Mealtimes have a pecking order. Normally, adults feed first. Today they stand back and allow the cubs to. The cubs don't show the same good manners towards each other. The bigger a kill, the more food. Group living means there are more lions to make big kills, but some prey animals are small, and this one, the warthog, provides lions with many a meal. Chief breadwinners for the pride are the females. They often use teamwork to hunt. A pincer tactic by two may cut off escape. Warthogs don't see very well, and they frequently trot right into a pride without even noticing, until it's too late. There's a lineup of keen and hungry spectators. There won't be much to go round, but they all move in. Not a scrap of warthog will be left, not even tusks. The downside of group life is that meals must be shared. In places where there's a long dry season, many prides rely on warthogs to tide them over until the rains. After a meal, a drink to help digestion. The pride has hardly finished eating when in come the keenest-eyed scavengers, the vultures. They can spot a far-distant lion kill from high in the air. Some diners are still at it, but the vultures will head the food queue. Surprisingly, lions themselves scavenge as much as 30% of their food in the dry season. They can see circling vultures 2 kilometers off and know exactly what it means. lion's usual home is the savannah. In some parts of Africa they live along the edge of forest, and in arid areas too. Food dictates the size of a pride and its territory. Sometimes a home that looks perfect because it's full of prey isn't. It's just the sort of place to attract strong competition from other meat eaters. Being top of the food pile doesn't mean a lion has a cushy life. If prey is thin on the ground, a pride may need a territory bigger than Paris. But in really good habitat, something only like a small town. Where the grass is greener, the hunting's easier. Running water can make a lion's life a lot more comfortable, and water in the dry season has the pull of a city's bright lights. Lions can't resist them, because water holes are where the prey is, and because lions need water, like everyone else. A big bull elephant is about the only animal able to lay down the law to a lion. "1-0 to the elephant. Conflict is a fact of life in the dry season, when everyone's after the same evaporating lifelines. Hot and thirsty lions just have to sit and swelter. In Zimbabwe's Mana Pools region, prides have territories of over 200 square kilometers. It sounds a lot, but it isn't. It's an area where water comes and goes as the pools fill up in the rains, then vanish in the dry. When it's wet and green, it's full of meat on the hoof. In Lionland, females hold the territories. It's where most were born and schooled in what to eat and where and when. And it's the female who usually leaps to the defense of her home, not the male. He'll only fight off other males, but she has her cubs to think of and needs to make sure other prides don't steal her prey. The dry season in the Okavango, harsh and stressful. A long wait for rain to rescue everyone from drought, hunger and heat. The bush is tinder dry. Fires break out, making life even worse. For most, it's a hard slog to find food and water in a landscape brittle with drought. But then the rains come. The lions are still doing what lions do best, relaxing. There's fresh blood around now, newborn herbivores. The Okavango's vast flat delta flows strongly again, its intricate maze of waterways fully topped up. This rich, lush region is one of the very best homes Africa can offer a lion. And the proof is that here small territories provide a living to large prides, because they have so much to eat. And this food dependency began a very long time ago. Just under 40 million years ago, the first cat-like creatures rolled off the production line. The earliest looked like a mongoose, lithe, intelligent, a capable and successful hunter. This was a time of global cooling. The lush forests that grew everywhere began to shrink, and grassland took over, the habitat of herbivores. And that paved the way for more carnivores. Pseudolyrus followed on from the mongoose-like first cat ancestor. It evolved in Africa and was as big as a leopard and as good a tree climber. Only 8 million years ago, the modern cat family, the Felidae, made their appearance. The first of these cats was no bigger than a domestic cat, but probably behaved like an African wildcat. This early species did well, fed by a population explosion of rats and mice. And from those first felids of 8 million years ago came all of today's wildcats, including lions. Lions are seriously laid back. When they're not out looking for a bite, they're snoozing, which is most of the time. Most humans know where their next meal's coming from. A lion doesn't. So lazing makes sense. It saves energy. Plus, a lion's heart is small relative to its size, so if it rushed about all day, it'd easily overheat. But when it's time to hunt, gone is all shred of indolence. A big, solid predator like a lion relies on sneaking close to prey before the surprise assault, especially important in a wide-open place like the Serengeti. Hunting strategy number 1: lie down and lull them into a false sense of security. And she's already been forgotten. Now she starts to stalk. First-class muscle control and an extremely supple, flexible spine enable her to move like this. Lions are now known to calculate exactly the right moment to charge. If they're close enough when the prey sees them, they'll do it. She should be close enough now, and she's still out of sight and out of mind. When she goes, she can do 0 to nearly 60 kilometers in just 4 seconds. A turbo car on 4 legs. But something went wrong, and it often does. 4 out of 5 lion chasers fail. A successful hunt is not just skill, it's luck. Lions usually walk in crocodile, mothers in front, cubs in the rear. They move little in the day. Dawn, dusk, and night are their active times when it's cooler, and keen night vision tilts the hunting odds in their favor. Often they follow herds of buffalo. Lions are not like their larger cousins, the tigers, who love to be up to their necks in water. But in some parts of Africa, the reputedly water-shy lion swims regularly. If it lives in Botswana's Okavango, it hasn't much choice. Getting wet is part of life if rivers run through its territory. A good doggy paddle gets them where they want to be. The most chilling sound in all Africa, a lion's roar. This thunderous greeting to the dawn has the same decibels as a small plane taking off. At night, in good conditions, a roar can carry nearly 4 kilometers. Lions roar most at dusk and dawn, because that's when sound carries best. And both sexes roar, not just the males. A roar can be an invisible barbed wire fence to demarcate a territory and warn off intruders. Roars are also contact calls. Animals that live in groups need a way of telling the others who they are and where they are over a distance. A full-blooded roar only comes with adulthood. To make a warning more fearsome, lions often roar in chorus. That should head them off at the pass. A cub's calls are hardly earth-shattering, like boys with voices breaking. Just as good as a roar are silent signals, the messages written in invisible ink on notice boards of tree, grass or bush. Lions get their pedicures on bark. Raking talons keeps them sharp by stripping off worn outer layers. And scent glands between the toes may also paste up chemical messages. Males are particularly keen to check who's been by and superimpose their own mark. If you live in a group, it's a good idea to stay friends, and body talk's a fine way to do it. Close physical contact achieves the same end in lion society as in human. after a friendly, respectful sniff, which also checks out status, a good lick. Even the roughest sandpaper can't match a lion's tongue. A few judicious licks with something that can strip skin from a dead animal do an excellent job of winkling out dirt and parasites. And licking is part of the glue that binds the group. And if you live in a group, order in the ranks is a good idea too. This female is irritated, but she bows to superior muscle power. Though the lion may be saying he's in command, the real decision makers in this society are the females. Young lions are great at body talk. Playtime is full of it, as the cubs learn what group life is all about, and train for a hunting profession. Some of the key notices in lion language are pinned up by females on heat. These are pungent invitations written in urine, which the pride's resident males read with great interest. A female litters her trail with them. He has a gland in the roof of his mouth that interprets her messages very precisely. Grimacing like this, he gives the gland maximum exposure to increased estrogen in the female's urine. Scent molecules of it hang in the air and lie on the grass. There's no mistaking what's said at mealtimes. This lioness knows she's not welcome. Sometimes a kill gets them so excited, the lions paw the ground round it in a misplaced scent-marking activity. Lion talk can be powerful stuff, and when they let rip, everyone sits up and takes notice. It might seem a breeze being Africa's top carnivore, and it is when they've killed and can't eat another thing. Then they live in peace with the neighbors, but the neighbors are always aware of them. The bustard needn't fear. This lion's just taking a walk. A lion's prey can tell the difference between a lion lazing and a lion giving the menu a look over. A lion settling down is a lion in neutral. A giraffe can drink without fear. No lion's going to jump it now it's midday and too hot to move. They're all sleeping it off. Cats are notoriously curious. This stone on legs needs checking out. Is it playing with the tortoise, or looking for a snack? Could be either. Lions have few enemies, mostly disease, each other, and people. Snares and traps kill lions, even if not meant to, yet they may recover from appalling wounds. Lions and tigers are the cat world's only regular man-eaters, but usually they avoid people. Very wise in respect of East Africa's Maasai tribe. Their ultimate test of manhood and bravery was to kill a lion, just with a spear. But this ancient rite of passage no longer exists. Since the 1970s, Kenya has protected its lions. So, is a lion's life easy? Though he might reach the ripe old age of 14, a male's can be full of punch-ups and aggro. A female can manage 17 years, years full of child-minding, risking life and limb in the hunt, and warring with neighbors. But the upside is their unique social lifestyle. Their prides give them greater strength, hunting prowess, and success. Perhaps solidarity is why these great cats are where they are, top of Africa's food chain. Kings of the carnivores.
I just heard this incredible noise. Hyenas. Obviously there was something afoot.
It is Farai, alive but bone-thin, weak, and facing a vicious mob.
Life as a nomad had obviously taken its toll, and we couldn't believe how bad Farai was looking.
It was just incredible to see a lion in such poor condition, when all signs of his mane had disappeared, and he was just an extremely thin and desperate lion.
Farai is engaged in a fight for his life, and then comes the cavalry. He's formed a coalition with another nomadic male, one who is also in terrible condition, but his presence is enough to turn the tide. After a brief but desperate battle, the lions drive off the hyenas, and then exact a grisly revenge. In the aftermath, Farai has taken a hyena cub. Hyenas are relatively slow breeders, and the death of a single cub can be an enormous loss. Farai seems almost too weak and exhausted to eat the cub.
It's most unusual for a lion to eat a hyena, but Farai was obviously really desperate and starving.
Still, the Richardsons hold out some hope for the young lion.
Given the fact that he'd survived through most of the dry season, and he had formed a coalition with another male, he'd obviously hung in this long. And we just hoped that he'd manage to hang in a bit longer.
There is thunder in the valley. Here, great herds of buffalo make their way through a parched African landscape, responding to the siren call of water. Sweet and clear, a spring rises out of an otherwise dry riverbed, a rare oasis. It is also a trap. To get there, the animals must descend into a valley of death. Filmmakers Lynn and Phil Richardson have come to this unique place in the hopes of capturing the secret life of the magnificent predators who prey upon these herds.
We went on an expedition in the Zambezi Valley, and during this trip we found this spring, which we realized would be perfect for lions.
It's quite a big spring in an area which is very hot and very dry. So the large herds of buffalo, they have to go there to drink.
The Zambezi Valley, broad and deep, carves its way through the ancient landscape of northern Zimbabwe. The spring lies 30 miles from the Zambezi River. The gorge around the spring is a dream landscape for predators, but it can be a nightmare for filmmaking. Thick scrub and countless gullies render vehicles useless.
Making a film about lions on foot is something that hasn't been done before.
We thought long and hard about walking with lions. At first it was really scary, but after a while it was extremely invigorating.
But walking with lions means lugging camera equipment over difficult terrain, in heat that can reach 115 degrees. With trackers Vice and Chris, Lynn follows a fresh trail.
This is fresh now.
Fresh, what time?
Yeah, this is 6 o'clock.
Okay, this is the one we must stay on now, Vice. Okay, let's follow this one.
The lions have gotten used to the filmmakers and usually ignore them, but today, for some reason, they are not welcome.
When a lion charges you, it's the most terrifying feeling, as if your heart has dropped out of your body. At times I thought, well, this is it, and it's coming too close, what do I do? But thank goodness our trackers taught us not to move. And that was our saving grace. Sorry, Shumba. Very sorry. I think speaking to them very gently and quietly makes them relax. I'm certain of that.
At first, Lynn assumes that they have stumbled upon sleeping lions.
They're all sleeping here. That's a pity. We disturbed them. Now he's coming back. It's great. Okay, Shumba.
But then the reason for the lions' aggression becomes clear. Vice is the first to realize what's wrong.
There's more one.
That's why they are so. That's why they're so nervous, because they've got cubs in there.
Yes.
It's their first glimpse of a cub they'll call Shumba, a cub who will become an important part of their lives over the next 4 years.
Here's the big male.
The lions seem to be headed for the spring.
Phil, come in. Okay, Phil, we are between Elbow and Fig Tree.
Lynn radios Phil so that he can get there before them and into his hide. The cub belongs to a lioness dubbed Mrs. Hunter. Phil hurries to get into position. A zoologist as well as a filmmaker, he is eager to get a glimpse of the newest member of the pride. He and Lynn have set up permanent hides at the best vantage points for observing the spring and the entrances to the gorge. Shooting from the hides has allowed the Richardsons to get to know each of the Pride members as individuals. Kavingo, the dominant Pride male, is the first to arrive. 9 adult and sub-adult females follow.
Kavinga is the territorial male. He's actually a wonderful lion. He just has a superb confidence about him. And what's best is that he's relaxed with us and accepts us.
Mrs. Hunter is the killer in the Pride. She's very experienced, but she's also a fantastic and very gentle mother. Her cub Shumba was so confident and full of life, we knew from the outset that she was to be a very special lion.
And then there's Farai, Shumba's 6-month-old cousin and the comedian of the Pride.
Farai is a lion cub without a care in the world. He thinks this whole place is just made for him, and all the lions are his playmates. He's just an indomitable little fella.
Another lioness calls for her own cubs, just 2 weeks older than Shumba. Lionesses in a Pride tend to synchronize their breeding and share child-rearing duties, even suckling each other's babies. But there's no time to tarry at the spring. It's been 3 days since the lions have eaten, and if the lionesses are to continue to produce milk, they must hunt. It's time to stash the cubs, and the lionesses have already picked out a perfect shelter, a tiny cave not far from the spring. While the cubs settle into their snug hideaway, the hungry adults head out. Farai, too young to hunt and too old to huddle in the cave, looks bereft at being left behind. At the height of the dry season, several herds of buffalo come to drink at the spring every day. The buffalo must be aware that lions haunt this place, but thirst leaves them no choice. The lions take up ambush positions at the entrances to the spring. Mrs. Hunter, Shumba's mother, shows exactly how she earned her name. Deftly, she hangs on to the thrashing 1-ton animal, keeping out of reach of sharp hooves and horns. Finally, the rest of the Pride arrives. It will take the combined weight and strength of all the lions to finish the buffalo off. Within minutes, the scavengers have settled in to observe the kill, as have the filmmakers.
They don't make a kill every day, and so when they do eat, they make the most of it. And they really gorge themselves and can eat 40 pounds of meat at a sitting.
Spotted hyenas join the vultures waiting for a place at the banquet. The lions are so full that their attempts to drive off the hyenas, their ancient enemies, are half-hearted at best. Now it's time for a good lie-down, something lions excel at. They'll spend up to 20 hours a day resting. conserving their energy. But for the Richardsons, there's no time to nap. Back at camp, they have to prepare for a long night of filming.
Okay, you got the lipstick?
As dusk settles over the camp, some noisy neighbors roost in the trees above. For Phil and Lynn, the baboons are not just amusing.
The baboons are quite helpful in a way. They're extremely vigilant, so when they're in camp, they act as a sort of security system for us and sound their alarm if a lion or leopard is approaching camp.
At nightfall, Phil and Lynn head for their hides.
It took us a while to get used to walking in the bush at night. It's pitch black, full of sounds of animals, and you never know what is around you.
Near the hide, Phil directs infrared lights toward the spring.
We can't use regular lights or the lions will leave, so we use infrared light, which the lions can't see, but neither can we. So we're blind except for what's visible through our infrared camera. When you switch on the lights, there's absolutely no change in the animal behavior at all.
To keep your wits about you, because all you can see is what you see in your monitor.
Tonight, the pride is feeding on yet another buffalo carcass. The meal is an uneasy affair, with as much snarling as eating going on, and their dinner is about to be interrupted. Elephants prefer to visit the spring by night, but they do not appreciate the company of lions. Protective cows crowd around their babies. The giant adults have little to fear from lions, but the big cats are the main predators of young elephant calves, and an ancient antagonism exists between the two species. A psychological duel ensues. The elephants seem infuriated by the proximity of the lions. Finally, the lions retreat. The elephants appear to treat the buffalo carcass with a mixture of curiosity and fear. As if to deny their defeat, Farai, Mrs. Hunter, and Kavingo noisily announce that they are still the rightful kings of beasts. The adults in the pride are extremely tolerant of Farai. They put up with his antics with little more than a snarl or two. Now the ravenous cubs appear and suckle furiously. Even Farai, now old enough to be weaned, steals a suckle. Eventually, the females decide that enough is enough. Now everyone is full and sleepy. rumble of thunder interrupts the lion's reverie. This calm, balmy night is about to take a violent turn. Humidity blown in from the north heralds the end of the long, hot, dry season. It's time to get Shumba and her cousins into the den. The filmmakers, too, head for cover, hoping that they won't blunder into elephants or lions in the rumbling darkness. By morning, rain is falling steadily. The wet season is officially here. This is good news for the wild things in the area, but not for the film crew. With water available everywhere, the great herds will no longer need to come to the spring, and the lions will head out after them. Filming will have to be suspended.
When the rains come at the end of the dry season, the place transforms immediately. One day you'll have hundreds of animals coming to the spring, and the next it'll be totally deserted. We just didn't realize for how long it would be deserted.
When the weather came and we experienced the worst floods in living memory, our project was failing, and we had to face that, and there was nothing we could do.
The Richardsons have little to film for almost a year and a half, aside from occasional sightings of the Pride.
Having hung in, we managed to see the Pride from time to time. We caught glimpses of Rhino and Shumba, and they all seemed to be flourishing.
Finally, after 18 months of mostly lost filming, the weather turns and the landscape begins to dry out again. Anxiously, Phil and Lynn await the return of the Pride. Then one day they spot a familiar figure at the bottom of the gorge. It is Mrs. Hunter on a buffalo kill. After so much time, the filmmakers have no idea if the lions will remember them, or if they'll be starting from scratch.
We were very pleasantly surprised. She was actually amazingly tolerant, given the fact that we hadn't been this close to her for over 18 months.
It was just so good to see the lions back again and to be on foot with them again. That feeling of being alive reawakened in us, to feel so at one with the lions and with what you're trying to achieve. It was really fantastic.
The filmmakers are delighted to see another lioness approach the kill. It's Shumba, now fully grown. But the lions have already gorged and abandoned the carcass after a few more mouthfuls. Instantly, the vultures seize the opening. Shumba is not pleased, and with good reason. A vulture can consume 2 pounds of flesh in minutes. She rushes the scavengers, only to be frightened off by the flap of wings. Kavingo, the male, is beginning to show his age.
He was still a big, powerful lion, but you could see that age was creeping up on him. So we were worried that his time as Lord of the Spring must be up.
And there is trouble in the air. For weeks, Kavingo has smelled the telltale signs of 2 young males wandering through his territory. They are after his lionesses. And today the nomads have decided to stake their claim. The young males are in their prime. Shumba and Farai, sensing trouble, head for cover. Kavingo has a choice to make: stand his ground or leave. The new males insolently scent mark over Kavingo's marks, and the older lionesses seem intrigued. Like most young males, these two were expelled from their birth prides at about Farai's age, and have wandered after the herds ever since. But now they have their eyes on Kavingo's lionesses and his bountiful place at the spring. Kavingo, outnumbered, is still reluctant to give up his territory. But one of the new males takes the offensive. The battle is brief but decisive. The lionesses look on as Kavingo departs. Bereft of his females and his prime real estate, the old male heads into the wilderness. The victor watches him go.
We knew Kavingo couldn't last forever, but it was actually a very sad time for us. We knew him so well and we liked him.
I was really sad to see Kavingo go, not only because we knew we'd never see him again, but because we got so attached to him. He was a very composed lion and very patient with his cubs. It was really sad to see him leave.
The arrival of the two new males seems to have unnerved the pride. Young Shumba and Farai take to the trees in terror. Farai's approaching the age when young males are driven from the pride. With tolerant Kavingo gone, his situation is precarious. The filmmakers are unnerved as well.
These lions came from nowhere. We'd never seen them before. They'd probably not laid their eyes on humans before. They kept running away when we went close to them.
Hoping the lions will come to them, Phil and Lynn set up in a hide near the pride's favorite place to drink. They don't have to wait long. It's the larger of the new males, loudly roaring his claim to this territory.
We had often videoed Kavingo at night, but now we had no idea how the two new males would react to us.
The adult lionesses seem to have accepted their new leader. But the male has not accepted the presence of humans.
They're huge, powerful animals, and those growls and roars just rattle through your body. It's really scary at night.
At night, they are just so completely in their own element, and you're so completely out of your element, and their respect for you diminishes to a very thin line.
When the lions disappear from the monitor, Phil scans the landscape, worried the cats might be stalking them from behind. He resorts to a searchlight. To his relief, he sees the lions heading off into the night. The dry season is deepening. Gradually, the last water in the riverbed evaporates, leaving the spring as the only surface water for miles around. Life becomes ever more desperate for the wildlife. A few miles from the spring, elephants gather in the withering heat, which now soars over 100 degrees. The riverbed looks dry, but the elephants are about to transform it.
There are a few places where the water level underground seems to rise up, and they dig wells to get down to the water.
It is a great opportunity for the filmmakers, and a great risk.
It's a lot more dangerous than working with lions on foot, because the mothers are so protective over their babies.
Using their enormous bulk and strength, the elephants dig down to the water level to create mud wallows. The mud cools them and protects their hides from parasites. For the youngsters, wallowing is just plain fun. Baboons are happy to help themselves to the fruits of the elephant's labors. It's dangerous for baboon babies to wander. New males in the troop might kill them. Fortunately, these babies come equipped with restraining devices. Phil notices that the wind is beginning to turn. Lynn heads for safety, but Phil stays behind to capture a few more close-ups.
The elephants had been aware of me for quite a while, and so I was feeling quite confident. Then all of a sudden, she just got her bee in her bonnet and came for me.
Phil takes cover, leaving the camera running.
It was a pretty full-on charge because she stopped only 4 feet from the camera. When the lion charges you, there's no question. You have to stand your ground. On the other hand, if an elephant is charging you, you definitely have to clear out of there.
After the elephants depart, the pride makes its way to the dry riverbed to rest. The new males and the older lionesses have accepted each other, for the most part. But Farai, Shumba, and the other youngsters are still keeping their distance. Their lives may yet be in danger from the new males. Shumba is the first to hear intriguing sounds from above the gorge. It's a large herd of buffalo, at least 200 strong. The sheer size and numbers of the herd take the young lions by surprise. Shumba manages to spook one cow. Poor Farai manages to spook only himself, and the buffalo press their advantage.
Buffalo are strange. Sometimes they run, sometimes they charge. The buffalo probably saw these lions were particularly lacking in confidence and took the opportunity to chase them around. Probably made the buffalo feel good.
The young lions slink off in ignominious defeat. One of the new males is watching Farai closely. He's not likely to tolerate the young male much longer. Shumba seems oblivious to her cousin's predicament and sticks by him constantly. Sensing the new male's growing aggression, Farai heads off to take up the life of a nomad.
We'd really grown to like him a lot, and it was sad to see him being eased out by these two big guys, because we knew that what lay ahead of him was a pretty tough time.
Shumba calls after him in vain. It is now the peak of another dry season. Waterholes across this parched land have vanished. Some grazers are starving, and some have not made it. The dead elephant has left behind an orphan. Just a year old, it cannot yet fend for itself, and it's vulnerable to predators. If it is not adopted, it has no chance. Elephants do sometimes adopt orphans, but this one seems to be having no luck. It may be the stress of the season, the battle for scarce resources, that causes the herd to reject the baby.
Filming that little baby being rejected was so hard. I just thought, this is tough. Nature is so cruel at times. But it was really very sad to see that female push it away, and then it just went off on its own because it kind of got the message. And that was even harder because there was this tiny little thing that wasn't going to have much of a chance out on its own.
One night, the infrared light illuminates a group of elephants who have come to the spring and appear to be acting strangely. They seem both attracted and repelled by something. After searching through their monitors, the Richardsons discover the cause. It's the baby elephant, now dead.
After having followed the baby Ellie for days and nights, we were amazed to see the other elephants pay their respects. It was very touching.
It's difficult to know why they do it. Maybe it's just curiosity. Maybe there is some sort of feeling of loss within the elephants that they feel one of their number has gone. But there's no room for sentiment in nature. These are just the harsh realities of life at the spring.
Before long, the lion pride has descended on the remains of the baby elephant. The size of the carcass brings together the entire pride for the first time since the arrival of the new males. The meal becomes a snarling, snappish affair. More elephants arrive and apparently object to the lions feeding on the baby elephant. In the end, it's a standoff. Another scorching morning dawns. The baboon sentries take up their lookout posts in the trees as hundreds of impala descend into the gorge. It is morning rush hour at the spring. In anticipation of a hunt, Lynn has taken up a position in a hide. Trackers Vice and Chris scan the scene from a tree above the gorge, keeping Lynn informed as to where the pride is heading. They're on the move. Lynn is anxious to see if Shumba has gained confidence after her brush with the buffalo.
Everything was perfect. The gorge was filled with impala desperate to drink. Shumba was moving into a perfect position, and the rest of the pride had closed off all the entrances to the spring. I watched intensely and felt really excited to see her so engaged.
Inexperience, Shumba seems unable to decide which antelope to charge and lopes after them indiscriminately. Then she spots a straggler.
I lost her in the vegetation, but we quickly moved to find she had made a kill.
Shumba has finally come of age as a hunter. She has apparently come of age in another way. She no longer avoids the males. In fact, she seems quite taken by them. Both males have noticed her condition, but 2 males and 1 female in heat can be a powder keg. Having asserted his dominance over his companion, the darker-maned male will shadow Shumba closely, reveling in her chemical invitations. By nightfall, Shumba is in an amorous mood, and so is the dark-maned male. Their courtship will last about 3 days and nights, punctuated by mating about every 20 minutes. Afterward, the 2 roar in chorus. The other male responds, and his roars will not go unanswered. Having reprimanded his companion, the male returns to court Shumba once again. A few nights later, strange wails and laughter pierce the gathering dusk.
I just heard this incredible noise, hyenas Obviously there was something afoot.
It is Farai, alive but bone-thin, weak, and facing a vicious mob.
Life as a nomad had obviously taken its toll, and we couldn't believe how bad Farai was looking.
It was just incredible to see a lion in such poor condition, when all signs of his mane had disappeared, and he was just an extremely thin and desperate lion.
Farai is engaged in a fight for his life, and then comes the cavalry. He's formed a coalition with another nomadic male, one who is also in terrible condition, but his presence is enough to turn the tide. After a brief but desperate battle, the lions drive off the hyenas, and then exact a grisly revenge. In the aftermath, Farai has taken a hyena cub. Hyenas are relatively slow breeders, and the death of a single cub can be an enormous loss. Farai seems almost too weak and exhausted to eat the cub.
It's most unusual for a lion to eat a hyena, but Farai was obviously really desperate and starving.
Still, the Richardsons hold out some hope for the young lion.
Given the fact that he'd survived through most of the dry season, and he had formed a coalition with another male, he'd obviously hung in this long, and we just hoped that he'd manage to hang in a bit longer.
The next morning, Phil and trackers Chris Cross and Mike head out in the already soaring temperatures, strategizing where best to capture a hunt on film.
If we go down too bad, a bad route, go down to the water.
Some of the pride watches them pass by. A few yards further on, warning grumbles emanate from a thicket. It's the dark-maned male. He is still not fully habituated to the filmmakers. But soon the lions have lost interest in them. Something more pressing has their attention.
Oh, there she is.
Shumba is beginning to show her mother's intensity when it comes to stalking. At the lip of the gorge, the nervous buffalo paws, perhaps sensing a trap. But thirst overcomes caution, and the buffalo take the plunge. Each step closer to the water takes them closer to the big cats.
I ended up being in a perfect position. The buff stopped to drink right in front of me. Shumba was making her approach from where I could see her, and the atmosphere was really tense and quite scary.
Shumba begins her stalk. buffalo smell the lioness and split, but after stampeding down the gorge a bit, they halt, unsure of where the danger lies. This time, it appears Shumba will not be intimidated. Thunders away from the young lioness. But for one buffalo, it's too late. Shumba and Mrs. Hunter have caught it.
Once the buffalo is being caught and brought to a standstill, they seem to almost go into a state of stupor. Maybe this is brought about by the lions hamstringing them and biting the nerves at the base of the tail. He's sort of held in one position. Once he's on the ground, he's got no chance.
It will take the pride 20 minutes to kill the enormous beast. Shumba has truly proved to be Mrs. Hunter's daughter, fearless at the kill. In the ensuing few weeks, it becomes clear that Shumba is up to something.
The lions often used to lie up in the dry riverbed, but we noticed that Shumba was always there, and quite often on her own. So we suspected that she wasn't just lying up for comfort, but that something else was cooking.
Criss Cross and Mike keep an eye on Shumba, waiting for her to head out on a hunting excursion. Only then can they safely send in the filmmakers to find out exactly what's been keeping Shumba so preoccupied. Cameras in hand, Lynn and Phil head for the spot that Shumba has been visiting. There, in a thicket that seems inadequate to protect something so precious, they find themselves in Shumba's den.
It's just incredibly exciting to go in there knowing the danger of the situation. And then, of course, to be in a lion's den. I mean, you've heard stories there for 2,000 years.
And there they were. It was just so fantastic to see these tiny little bundles, and they were probably only 3 weeks old, and their eyes had only just opened. They were really sweet.
I thought they'd cuddle together. They're miles apart. Yeah, they can barely walk, these little things. Chris, confirm he's still with the lioness, over.
Phil radios the trackers to find that time is short. Shumba is heading back to her den. Phil hustles to get a small lipstick camera in place so that he and Lynn can monitor the den remotely and maybe catch the mother and cubs together.
Okay, let's see, let's clear out here. The lipstick's ready.
Then it's time to go. "50 yards downwind from the den, Phil keeps an eye on the cubs, awaiting Shumba's arrival.
I don't believe it, but the lioness is in the den.
She seemed so proud when she came back, and We watched her through the remote camera for quite a few weeks, and she was fantastic with the cubs. She was so gentle, and we thought she was to be a good mom.
It's been the perfect ending to the Richardsons' time walking with lions. After 4 difficult years, they've captured the most intimate moments of an entire generation of lions on film. On the horizon, storm clouds have begun to gather. The rainy season cannot be far off. And soon the lions of the spring will depart, carrying with them the affections and hopes of the filmmakers who have come to know them so well.